Hi
Hi
Lee.
guys,
Hi.
how
Good
are
morning,
you?
friend. I know it's evening for you there. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it is. It's 8 o'clock here. What time is it where you guys are?
It's just on 11.
Nice,
Yeah, yeah.
nice. And how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good.
Another
Fantastic.
wonderful day, yes.
We have Simon and Suzanne with us, in case anybody doesn't know. Um, yeah, Simon is one of these fans of mine that has these awesome questions and comments about songs to a level of like understanding that is incredibly interesting for me because he gets the music beyond just the lyrics and everything. He gets the music, so I really appreciate that, Simon.
Welcome. Uh, so
So,
I'm kind of curious how you branched out into the trance side of things from what I would call a kind of Nightwish Evanescence kind of sound that you've had previously. I'm not trying to say that your stuff's like that. It just has a similar style to it, but of course you're quite unique in your own songs and your songwriting. What made you go into trance so much?
that's a great question. The decision was also almost made by fate. Um, I guess I'm not someone who I believe that we make our own choices, but what happened here was I had made a choice and just let the direction of that choice guide me. I had moved to LA and decided that I needed to make an album, and I was the only thing I was sure about was that I wanted the album to reflect and help me discover three things about myself. Um,
Sure,
I don't do music for the sake of doing music. I do it to understand myself, and I only ever write songs if I've got something to heal or something that I'm confused about.
sure,
And there was a big, big knot in my soul. And in the a few years before I had moved to LA to do this, I had changed and shifted my life so much that I didn't really have any reference points anymore.
sure.
And I felt that I needed to just understand who I was now. And so this album was all about finding my identity and learning how to let go of everything that I was clinging to from my past. And it was
Yeah,
about learning how to have fun. And I honestly thought I was going to make a rock album. And so I had started to meet with different producers in Los Angeles. I had no idea how any of it was going to happen, but people were introducing me to other people without even being asked to do so. So I just was following all the different opportunities that were there. And I had met Luke Emrose, who is Evolutionary Theory, a producer in Sydney. I had met him when I was living in Sydney. And soon before I moved to Los Angeles, we had reconnected again after he had given me a CD almost a year before I moved to Los Angeles. And he had said, he's like, listen to the stuff on this CD. And there was hundreds and hundreds of like 1 minute samples that he had created himself.
yeah,
And I said to him, dude, I'm not really into electronic music. Like I listened to it when I was a kid, but it's just I do rock. It's not my thing.
mm,
And um, and so what happened was that I saw him again just before I moved to Los Angeles, and I agreed to listen to the CD. I happened to see the CD while I was packing all my stuff, and we bumped into each other. And I told him that I had listened to some stuff, and there was one song that I really liked, and that I was going to do something with it when I was in Los Angeles. Anyway, long story short, when I got to Los Angeles and recorded something, um, it was the most fun that I had ever had in the studio.
that's great.
I
Yeah,
had never even thought about doing the electronic thing. And I was meeting with all these other rock producers, but here I was knowing that I was going to write this album about is really deep stuff, but I knew that having fun and learning how to have fun, because it's not something that I know how to do, I knew that doing that was going to be an integral part, and I was terrified about learning how to have fun. But I thought, if at least I can have some fun in the studio, that might help me tick that part off.
Yeah, sure.
And so I picked up the phone, and Luke knew that I was meeting with all these producers, and he in no way ever thought that we were going to make an album together. But I remember after meeting a really, really big name producer, coming home, and then going and doing this session for Luke in Hollywood, I thought, I hope this album that I write with this producer ends up being as much fun as the song that I had done for Luke. And it was a no-brainer. Within a few minutes, I picked up the phone, called Luke in Australia, and said to him, will you produce my album? And he said, you get that it's going to be an electronic album, right? And I was like, yeah, I have no idea how to do that, but I figure if I'm going to try and figure out who I am and what my identity is, the only way I'm going to authentically be able to do that is if I start from a musical reference point that I don't understand. That's going to give me the greatest opportunity to be as vulnerable as possible. Yeah. And I was terrified. But I trusted that I had made a choice. And again, this goes back to my whole red feather thing of, you make a choice and you look for the opportunities to fulfill the choice. And that's what happened. When Luke turned up and all of that happened, it took us 2 years to write an album, and I couldn't be prouder of it. Like it was the learning experience from hell for me, because it made me look through every vulnerability I had from a musical perspective, and Luke's a genius. And for the whole album, I was never in the same room as Luke, ever. I did my stuff on my end, and he did his stuff on his end, and we exchanged files the whole time.
Yeah.
Which was not how I was used to making music.
Yeah. But that does seem to be the way that singers and electronic producers are working these days.
Yeah. And the thing was that what we were doing was I would write the songs from my end. It started out that I was just sending him a vocal. I'd be somewhere and a song would just come to me, and I would record it like onto my phone or into anyone's laptop that was around me. And I'd just send him a raw vocal, and the poor guy, like I didn't have any melodic reference points. I couldn't even pitch to anything because I wasn't near my computer. And so the poor guy would have to try and figure out what notes I was singing. And he was having the hell of hell times trying to write the track. And that's how it all started. And then he said to me a few songs, and he's like, you got to start writing to a piano track, because this whole writing the songs on the fly, this is not working. It's just too hard.
I understand it's been very difficult for him, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I started doing was just going back to writing songs the way I would always write them for rock. Just write a song, and then send him the vocal and the piano as a MIDI, and then he would turn it into his masterpiece from there, and we would go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards until we got a direction that we were happy with. And it always seemed to come to trance. He's not a trance producer. He's a drum and bass producer.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
And yeah, so that was the cool thing about it, was that we were both so committed to the song. It wasn't it wasn't about us. It was always about the songs.
Yeah.
And him as a drum and bass producer, we weren't looking to create a trance album. We were just looking to create an electronic album, because that's what he knew how to do, and it fit what I wanted to do. And it just so happened that most of the songs, I think bar 2 or bar 3 songs, they're all trance songs.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, fuck, we've created a trance album, and neither of us are really committed to the whole trance scene. And I think that's, then we had a few interesting situations from there with the people that are in the trance scene saying, who do you think you are? You're the vocalist. You're not allowed to be releasing an album as the vocalist. You're supposed to be releasing it as the producer featuring the vocalist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but I don't know anything about the trance scene. Just because I've released an album that's got a trance sound, I don't know the rules of your world, man. You know what I mean?
I'm not totally sure I know the rules of the... I think you just, as far as I'm concerned, you just do what seems appropriate at the time, and just work together with another artist. And I've done my fair share of that.
You're a producer too, aren't you, Simon?
I am, yeah. Mainly, pretty much uplifting trance is my thing. And I'm only really starting out, so it's all pretty new to me as well. I'm signed to 2 or 3 labels at the moment. Nothing big, but it's exciting for me, and I'm enjoying just trying to get as much material out there as I can.
That's the whole point of us doing what we do, isn't it? Just to get our music out there and get people hearing it. And electronic dance music is going to be the big thing for, I think, the next 15 to 20 years.
I reckon so. I believe that as well.
I believe that dance music or EDM or electronic dance music, whatever anyone wants to call it, I believe that it is to this decade and the next decade what rock was to the 90s and the early noughties. That when that whole Nirvana thing was happening and whatnot, and that led into a whole new evolution through that decade and the next decade. Well, I think that that's what's happening right now with electronic dance music, and I think that that's going to flow through to the end of this decade and through to the next one before we see the next shift. But who knows? Technology is driving the cycle so quickly now, isn't it?
Way too fast for me sometimes. Even the style of music, electronic music, is constantly changing. It's constantly morphing, I find. So you get a lot of the dubstep sounds are making their way into the trance and the house scene, and I'm not sure it's all to my taste, to be honest. But I like to keep it pure trance, and maybe I'll probably be considered out of date, before long. So I think maybe. To be
well, I don't know that I know what pure trance sounds like anymore, to be honest with you. It's just all weird, this whole... Luke and I were very big on we don't talk genres. We're not trying to make a genre-specific album. Any of the producers that I work with, it's the same thing. It's not a genre-specific thing. We're just making music. And if anyone's going to try and pigeonhole us into anything, they can go fuck themselves, because that's just not the way I roll.
I think it's all more exciting though when you have an idea for a song, like you say you write out your piano part and you sing vocal on the top and the bare bones of the track, to not know where it's going, from the start, and then halfway through you think it's going this way, and then by the time you've finished it's actually going a completely different way from how you first expected it to. I think that those make for the best sometimes.
I gotta say, it was like opening a present on Christmas morning every time I get an email from Luke, because we were operating on 2 different time zones. So I'd send him something and he'd work most of the way through the night. And, he was an absolute champion during the making of this album. Even though it took us 2 years, he was tireless in his dedication to making sure that everything was perfect and that we were both satisfied. It wasn't just about... The man definitely came with no ego. And for both of us, it was very much about making sure that the song was worshipped first as opposed to either of our egos. And so I'd wake up the next morning and it'd be like, oh, I can't wait to see what the song sounds like. Like I sent him a raw vocal and a piano part, and it could be anything. And particularly because we weren't aiming for a trance album, we were just aiming to do an electronic album. And so we had no clear direction of what anything was going to sound like. So to me, that's the exciting thing about working with collaborators, particularly the way I prefer to write. I don't like to top write. I find that that gets very messy, and most of the time whenever producers send me a track and they're like, we really love your voice and want you to write a vocal over the top of this, the majority of the time they've left no room for a vocal. There's no pockets in the track for a vocal to slip into. So you end up having to tell them you need to take stuff out, take a lot of stuff out, so that I can actually hear where you need a vocal to go. And they tend to be way too attached to the track, because they're usually really great standalone tracks that don't need a vocal. But vocal trance tracks or whatever, vocal tracks tend to be more popular commercially, which is why they tend to go for wanting to add a vocal to something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's very exciting to see the evolution of a song, particularly when you start from just a raw piano and vocal. It's a very cool creative position to come from.
Do you find that writing your tracks, do you find it's best to be sat at your piano writing the track, or can your ideas just spring up anywhere, you know, in the back of a taxi, or on the bus, or in the most awkward times, you may not have a pen to paper, to actually write it down there and then?
Usually my songs will start at either when I've got something to do with water. So either when I'm in the shower or I'm washing dishes.
Right.
And that's only something that I've really come to see in the last maybe 12 months. Because I noticed a lot of the time I'd have shampoo in my hair and have to get out of the shower with shampoo still in my hair because I'm worried that I'm going to lose the idea. And so that's highly inconvenient. And I'm really glad I live on my own for that reason, because I run through the apartment just trying to get to Henry with shampoo in my hair and a towel around me, just trying to get the song down as quickly as I can. Or I'll run to, if I'm not in my apartment, or if I'm out. Before iPhones, what I used to do was ring my voicemail and sing the song into my voicemail.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And that way I'd know it was always there. But now what I just tend to do is, even if I'm at Henry and I'm writing, rather than recording directly into my laptop, I'll record into my iPhone so that when I'm away, I can listen to it and still see if I like the idea. And that tends to be, but always with piano. I've tried learning guitar. It's not my instrument.
I cannot play guitar to save my life.
I've tried. I really have tried, and I even bought myself a ukulele, because I found that guitar was too taxing to learn and blah blah blah. And I thought ukulele would be easier, and it is somewhat. But I find between doing what I want to do with Henry and all my work on the music spring, as it is, I'm working about 110, 120 hours a week. So finding the time to learn a new instrument, I'm not really able to give it the kind of time that it wants. And any spare time I've got, I want to just hang with my piano. I'm not going to hang with my other instruments, Lucy or Baby Jane's. That's my ukulele is Baby Jane's and my guitar is Miss Lucy.
Awesome. Are you completely self-taught on the piano?
Yeah, on the piano, yes. I did get some lessons for most of last year, just to help me build my. I wanted to learn how to be a bit freer with regards to rhythm, because I do want to. I mean, it's great for us as artists that DJs play our music out, and that I don't really need to gig because DJs are playing the music, but I miss that connection with the audience. So what I do want to do is reinterpret the songs back into an acoustic set. And so I got a really great piano teacher here in Sydney, Fabian, and he was working with me so that I could just be more comfortable if I wanted to play on stage myself. But other than that, yeah, pretty much self-taught. When I came back to music, I decided I would just know how to play the piano.
Sure.
And just sat there and played and played and played and played and played until it started to make sense. I didn't try to learn what any of the notes were or any of the chords were. I just listened to the music and listened to what the piano was telling me and just felt my way. How about you? You play on piano? You write on piano?
I write on piano. I've been playing since I was 8. I was a very
Wow.
slow learner actually, and just with a short attention span, and I always wanted to do my own thing. So I guess from an early age it was kind of I was feeling my own way around the piano as well. Um, but having studied a lot of the classical music on it really sort of it helped me to gain the theoretical knowledge of playing as well, so I can read the music and um, when I got to a certain stage of playing piano, I became far more interested in actually doing it. But before you kind of when you don't understand as much, I think a lot of people put off learning, So a lot of people at my school were learning piano, just before our major exams. And then by the time exams came, more than half of them had probably given up. And as for me, it was my passion, so I just carried on with it and did as much as I could and persevered, really.
I firmly believe that whenever you're doing something that you're passionate about, you're always going to stick to it, which is why you should always be doing shit that you're passionate about.
Yes,
You'll never live a minute of life sad or unhappy. You may be stressed and frustrated and all those kinds of things, but you won't be unhappy if you're doing everything that you're passionate about. You'll be tired, you'll be exhausted, you could be angry and frustrated, but you won't be unhappy.
Mm. I've always had the music to fall back on, so
Nice.
it takes you out of the mood, puts you somewhere else, out of life, and that's the best way.
And I find that it removes the importance of everything else so that you can see clearer. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that, when you've got music, I don't know whether it's the vibration of what music does or whatever, and if it aligns with chakras or what, but I definitely find that whenever there's music on, or whenever I'm writing music or playing music, everything makes sense to me.
Mm.
It's one of those things where I realize this is a leveler for me. Some people go for a run. I write music, or I listen to music, and that helps me. And I don't listen to music a lot, I gotta say. I should do more of that.
I'm actually the same as well. I mean, I used to listen to more through participation than anything else, having sung in a choir, and that was the main sort of source of me listening was actually by singing it or playing it on the piano. And I played the trumpet for a little bit, but wasn't very good at that. And then of course music college, a fair bit of listening there, but we were always told to go and listen to this and listen to that, and I probably never did and probably should have done, And the other sort of music I've listened to, been in the past, growing up with my dad, because he had a big classical record collection, so I was always listening to stuff then, and occasionally I asked what it was, but I probably never remember what it was. And so there's so much music I know by ear, not necessarily what the track is called or who it's by. And if I like something, I'll tend to go, ask someone who is this, and then maybe might go and buy it.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite to listen to?
My favorite to listen to. It's hard to say. I mean, with
Does it
terms of
depend on
classical
your
music.
mood?
Sorry.
Does it depend on your mood?
It can do. I might choose I might end up choosing the same artist. I mean, I listen to a lot of Bach because I play a lot of Bach, and
Wow.
I find that technical side of his music very appealing. And that just it gives me something completely different to think about, and I enjoy playing it as well, and I enjoy the feeling of having got through playing it because a lot of it's so demanding on the fingers and that. But I think with trance music for me, there's the whole feel of it is just it takes you somewhere else, and I think that's what I enjoy most, and I probably tend to put that on now more than anything, whether I'm going to be washing the dishes or doing my laundry or anything like that. I'll just stick the tunes on and away I go. And
Go on.
I find tracks like Shackles and I'm Here, the Evolutionary Theory remix of I'm Here, sort of really, sounds like you've had absolute, you don't need any training on the trance front of things, and you've got the style to a T, and it sounds perfect. Like you could have been writing trance for years now, and it's interesting that you kind of only sort of recently sort of got into that, and because they sound really great tunes.
Thank you. I gotta say, I can't really take the credit for putting those two together. I just wrote the songs, and I think my songwriting style tends to lean very easily towards trance, and it was Luke, Evolutionary Theory. He's the one who really owned making those songs into the electronic masterpieces that they are. I really think he made them masterpieces. He gave everything to all of those tracks, and I guess for me, I wrote these songs and just hoped that they would make his job easier. And since I've been working with other artists that tend to lean towards trance as well, it just every song that I seem to write and give to a producer, they tend to be, this is going to be a very trancey track. And I don't deliberately write for it to be a trance track. I usually tend to hear a more housey kind of feel. Yeah. And they're like, no, it's a trance song again. I'm like, oh. I don't know whether they all just hear trance because all the stuff that came before it was trancey, or whether they're like, well, no, it's actually got a trancey feel to it. I do tend to think that the emotion in my songs works very well with trance. Do you know what I mean? I think there's something special about trance music that really transforms the spirit.
Trance is a great emotion giver, an emotion carrier. It's a good vessel for carrying emotions, and in all kinds of ways. I think that's why I lean to it myself, and again why there's a similarity with trance and classical music, which I try and link the two. And again, with your kind of style leaning towards the Nightwish Evanescence thing, without wanting to sound wrong about it, you have your own style.
I get it a lot. If I had $1 for every time somebody confused my vocal and Amy Lee's vocal, I get people confusing us all the time and saying, oh, you're that chick from Evanescence. I'm like, no, we both have Lee in our name, but we're not the same person. Yeah, so I'm not offended by it. There are, I take it as a great compliment. I think she has a beautiful voice.
That's a brilliant voice, and so do you. I mean, there's a very similar edge to it, but very pure sound. I think that's also probably what works well for trance as well, because you need that pure sound to carry over the track, particularly with everything that can be going on in a trance track. Quite busy, and you've got to it has to sing. It has to sing out, stand out over the track.
Yeah, and that goes back to that whole thing of what I was saying. When a trance producer typically sends me a track and says, "Can you sing? Can you write a vocal? Write a vocal over this?" Usually, there's so much happening in the track. Do you know what I mean? So that's I totally identify with what you're saying there. That there's usually so much going on in a track that a lot of the time the vocal is competing with the actual track. Or what producers will tend to do is they'll bury a vocal in the mix, and you can't really bury my vocal. It's kind of there. So I'm very, very particular with the producers that I work with. I get sent a lot of requests to do vocals, and I'm quite choosy.
Yeah, I think you have to be. You have to be discerning about it, don't you? You can't just, it has to work for you. Which actually leads me on to another question about when you were producing these tracks with Evolutionary Theory.
Evolutionary Theory, yep.
Presumably you were giving him feedback throughout the entire process of him constructing it. He'd send you bits, and then you'd say, well, I like this bit, or I'm not quite sure about this bit. How do you feel like when he's slicing your vocals up and glitching them, and do you think, oh, I wasn't quite expecting that, and I'm not sure if that bit works there? I mean, was there a lot of that, or were you all kind of really quite pleased with it? Or
there was a lot of backwards and forwards, and we worked so well together, and we agreed right up front that this album was going to be an honest collaboration, and we were going to communicate very honestly, and we were really respectful. And I'm not an artist that likes to work with people and say, this is how you're going to do it. I think that that's a lost opportunity. Anyone I work with from a creative perspective, whether it be from, if they're shooting the photo from an album cover or a single cover, or if they're dressing me for a shoot or whatever, they're a creative person. I want them to be present in the work too. So for me, it was important that Luke was as present in the songs as I was.
Sure.
And what was, you look at a song like I'm Here, and would you believe that we went through 170 versions of that song before we got to a direction? Not the final direction. That's just until we could agree on a kind of a flow for that song. 170 different styles of that song before we got to something that even was close to, okay, this is the right beat, this is the right structure, and okay, we'll have some strings in there, and then started a 6-month process of turning that into the epic track that it is now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it can be very challenging. I'm working with a producer at the moment who I think is fucking incredible. His name's Joplin, and we're not doing a trance track together, and I don't think he and I would ever do a trance track together, but the track that we are doing together is hard work, but in the most beautiful way, because he's not done a vocal track before, but I believe in him as a producer so much that I want to do many songs with him. And being able to trust each other enough so that you can give of your opinion to somebody who's doing something to your work. So when someone takes your vocal and you trust them with that, you can't not build some sort of a bond that's going to be long term. no matter who I work with. If I'm giving them my vocal to work with, that from me requires a lot of trust. Another producer, Shane Cross, he and I have become great friends, and that's come from being able to trust each other musically and being able to believe that any feedback he's giving me is honest, and that I feel safe enough to say to him, no, I don't like what you've done, without like saying it from love. I remember the song that we did on the album on Laundry After Midnight was called Touch, and had changed a little bit because of some issues we were having with a publishing company, and it's now called Illusions. I remember when we were doing that track, I almost sent Shane crazy, and it was purely because I didn't think that he was being honest enough with his approach to the song. And I kept saying to him, you can be more honest with what you're trying to say through your music. And he was frustrated as hell with me. So frustrated. And I could feel that he was frustrated, but I wanted more from him. I wanted him to give me even more of himself in that track. And I don't know how many versions we had gone through. And I was exhausted, and he was exhausted, and I was almost at the point of, fuck it, are we going to actually make this song happen? And then one night, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got an email from Shane, and he said, I don't know if you're going to like this. This is completely the other direction than what we were talking about, but see what you think of this. And it was 3 o'clock, and I knew I was tired, and I thought, maybe I shouldn't listen to this right now. My ears are not going to listen properly. But I thought, fuck it, I'll just see. I put this track on, and it had this, I remember when you used to listen to something on floppy disk and it was corrupted. It used to make this glitching sound.
Yeah.
And the beginning of this song had this glitchy kind of thing, just like specks here and there. And I'm like, oh, I think the file's corrupted. And then I heard these strings, this pad, start to come through the background and creep right from the back over the top of these specky, flicky noises.
Yeah.
And my whole body just went into chills. And I was mesmerized. I listened to that song on repeat for an hour. And it's every time I think about it, even now I have chills. And I knew that I'm going to make music with this guy for the rest of my life. You know, it's just one of those moments where it's like, I can hear his truth in this music, and there's no vocal in it. Like there was no, I could just hear his truth, and for me that's all I ask for from any of the producers that I'm working with, anyone that I'm working with creatively. Just give me who you are, because I'm giving you 600% of me. All I want is 100% of me.
So each journey then becomes a track that will just bring forward something new in your life personally, as well as together with whoever you're collaborating with, and will bring out aspects of your life and whatever's happening for you, as well as forward into the journey as well.
That's right, and that tends to be why it never is just one collaboration. You know, we start to form these bonds, and we start to form trust around each other as songwriters. And even though it becomes frustrating, we make these, you know, these bonded agreements with each other that we're just going to try and be as honest as we can be. And for us, for anyone that I work with, it's this thing of, this is my opportunity to write a better song than I wrote before. And better to me has nothing to do with music. Better has something, the only thing it has to do with is honesty. So if I can be more honest and more giving and more present in the song that I'm working on now with you, that's our yardstick, that's a measure. of the song we worked on before. We just both have to come more honestly to this track. So what you tend to get is this evolution of music where all the artists that are involved are just getting more and more honest. And to me, the more honest you are, the better the music you're going to make. And if that keeps evolving that way, you end up with a catalogue of music that is just touching people and their stories. You know, it makes sense to everyone that listens to it. Even if they don't like trance music, something that I get a lot of comments is, I'm not into that style of music, but I loved that song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so your fan base will be growing from that as well, because it'll not just be trance fans that will be listening to you, but more and more people coming in and giving trance actually a chance because they're enjoying your vocals.
Yeah, and I don't know that they're necessarily going to go and become trance fans. I don't know that people are listening to music that way anymore. What I'm finding is that people are tending to gravitate towards artists as opposed to just genres. So it was why I was able to carry forward so many of my fans from my previous style of music, because they were connected with me. They weren't necessarily just connected with rock music. You know, I wasn't necessarily a whole, you know, let's get out there and rock. For me, it's always been about how can I say what I need to say as authentically as possible. And it just so happens that authentically right now I'm expressing that in electronic music. And so they do come aboard. For them, because the songs start as acoustic songs, you know, we can take those songs and they translate really well as electronic tracks, but they translate really well back into acoustic. So then when I release the demos, people tend to connect with those as well. I think, in fact, they tend to connect more with the demos than just with the electronic tracks. Even electronic fans connect with the demos.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time connecting with your fans as well, right?
So much time. It's a big priority for me now.
Yeah, yeah. So have you found that as a community, the fans are getting to know each other too, and it's becoming more almost like a bit of a family feel there?
Yes, it's I think it's, for me, the most rewarding part of everything that I do. The music industry is a tough industry, and particularly the model that's emerging. You know, as a music entrepreneur, I'm not doing things the way that are supposed to be done, the way the traditional model was. So, you know, my business is still evolving. So there need to be other payoffs for me that make it worth me staying in music. And the interaction that I have with my fans, who are friends, then I don't tend to. I use the word fans because that's just the word that everyone uses. But my fans, I see them as friends. One of them, Nikki, who did a missleelive with me. She's an author and she's got some amazing creative endeavors going on. And she's now got me as a beta reader for her upcoming book. And I just feel like that's amazing to me, that we're forming these friendships and that fans are meeting each other and understanding that they're, I guess, that they have this thing in common, which is trying to live an authentic life in amongst this world that just seems to reek of inauthenticity. And that was a key thing for me through all of this, and it was why I wanted to do these missleelives. I find with all this bullshit that's out there, with media and with marketing and with all this stuff, it didn't sit well with me. And I didn't know that the information that was going to be put through media was actually going to reach the people that wanted to know it. And so I thought, well, how do I know what people that like my music actually want to know? And how do I help them connect more closely with me? Because let's face it, your fan base is your record label now. And for me, it's the payoff that's the most worth it. In a market where people don't pay for music anymore, and I'm not resentful of that at all. I think that as long as the fans are hearing the music and are feeling the music and are engaging the music, they will find a way to support you if you are doing the right thing by them. And I haven't done a great job at giving fans a great way to support me through a whole bunch of stuff. You know, like I put out loads of music, but if people don't want to pay for music, you can't force them to pay for music. Give them stuff that they want to buy and let them just have the music. So that's something that I'm getting better at this year. We're opening a merch store actually, and it's going to have a bunch of cool stuff in it. So actually I will tell you this. The album Laundry After Midnight,
Okay.
is going to be released on cassette tape.
Oh, really?
Wonderful.
So I'm not releasing it on CD, but
That's all.
when we launch the store, you know, and it's cool to have cassette tapes. You know, like I still have a cassette tape player, and I'm so excited about being able to play my album on a cassette tape player. So it's my way of giving my fan base a way to be able to support me so that this does become a really great thriving business. I'm working with other artists that I want to be able to bring into my record label and help them have sustainable careers. But the only way we can do that is by generating a revenue stream that supports my business and their business going forward. So we're still learning how to build the model that's going to work for everybody. No one's actually got any of that figured out yet.
Mm.
It's like the wave of the future, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's artists are looking for a magic potion of, you know, how do we click our fingers and have a music career? There is no magic potion anymore. It's called entrepreneurship, and it's called being a business owner and working your ass off and engaging your fans and being authentic. I think that's such a major part of it, is just be real. If you want to create bubblegum music, that's fine. I don't have a problem with people creating bubblegum music. It's not my way, but I think that people see through that, and I don't think that people stick with you long term if you're making bubblegum music. That's just my opinion.
I kind of agree with it, really. One thing I was going to ask was about your record label. You've just started, Red Feather Records.
Yeah.
Is this exclusively to put out your music, or are you going to be signing all kinds of artists to it in the future?
Red Feather Records is a big dream of mine. It's not just for me. The label is going to run very differently than the way most record labels run, and it will be looking to sign artists. The idea is that it will run somewhat like a co-op. So it's about building a community of artists that learn how to have a sustainable career. And that community will exist within the Red Feather Records family. And so I'm looking for specific types of artists. They have to be actual artists, not just people who are very good at making music.
Yeah.
To me, an artist is someone who has something to say, not just people who are putting out a shit ton of music. There are loads of labels that are out there for producers and songwriters and whatnot that are happy to sign one song from this artist and another song from another artist and things like that. I'm looking to sign artists to my label who have a conversation that they want to have with a community of people, because that's what I think builds a sustainable music career. And I'm signing artists, or looking to sign artists who are looking to work hard in order to be as honest as they can through their artwork. So that's what I think builds a sustainable career. They need to not be lazy. They need to realize that this is a very, very hard industry to be a part of, but are committed to being a part of a family that's striving for huge success, and we will achieve huge success because of what we're doing.
It sounds like you've got it all kind of planned out, really, and I think it pays to be a bit different, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that with the way that a lot of labels are going, I'll give you an example. I was approached by a producer, and I'm not going to say names. I was approached by a producer a few months ago. And he said to me, he approached me through SoundCloud. I know that he had heard my music before. He had told me how much he liked the album. And about a year after the album came out, he contacted me and said, Lee, I've written this track and it has to have your vocal on it. And I thought I'd give the song a listen, and I could understand why he wanted my vocal on it. It needed a haunting, ethereal vocal, and he was all about, he's like, it can't have any bubblegum lyrics. It needs to have real, deep, meaningful stuff. I listened to it and I agreed with him. And he said, and I told him that I thought it was fantastic and that, yes, I can see why he had come to me. Let's have a conversation. So he sent me the track and said, fine, do what you need to do and send it to me when you're done. And I said to him, let's have a conversation before I start putting in, weeks worth of work to make this track, because it takes that long to make a decent track. And we got on the phone and he said, Lee, this song, it's signed. There's going to be massive promotion behind it. There's going to be a music video behind it, and done deal. And I said, okay, so what do we get out of it? And he said, well, the label's going to give us 50%. And I said, what? And he said, 50%. And I said, 50% of what? And he said, well, it kind of works out a little bit different. You'll end up with, 50% of our part. And he said, I get 60% from the label. The label's going to keep 40%. I said, so I get 30%. Anyway, long story short, we kept going backwards and forwards, and he had expected that I would do this vocal for nothing and that he was going to make thousands and thousands of dollars from the label and blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, I don't know if you've been releasing music for very long. And this guy was closer to 50 than he is to 30. Right. He's been doing this for a long time. And I said to him, I know exactly how much money you're not going to make from this, and I know that, we release music now to promote ourselves as artists. We don't release music to make money from music. People buy their positions on certain charts, and people buy copies of their own single to get themselves up Beatport charts and things like that. Now, I don't want to run a label like that. And I know the label that song was signed to, and in fact, that label contacted me today asking me if I would want to sign a lot of my future tracks to them. And the thing is that I don't want to create that kind of environment for my artists. I want my artists to know that it is from the community that they're in, that there is no, we're just going to see what's going to happen with this track, and if they like it or not. If they don't like it, we'll just buy our own copies and get ourselves off the Beatport charts. I don't give a fuck about the Beatport chart position. There's no place for me to be able to gig right now in nightclubs, and I wouldn't gig in nightclubs, but the vocalist doesn't really have a position to be out there on the live scene right now. So I'm not going to get booked. I get nothing out of being on the Beatport chart other than promotion. And if I have to compete with all these other big-name producers that are buying their position on charts through buying their own singles, I don't want to compete in an industry like that. I'd rather create my own one. And so with being different is about guaranteeing our success as a label and guaranteeing our success as artists so that we're servicing our fans. we're not servicing the Billboard charts, and we're not servicing the Beatport charts. The fans are the only thing we're interested in.
Yeah.
If the fans are liking what we're doing, they'll support us. And if we're staying true to ourselves, the fans are going to like what we're doing.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the relationship that we're looking at creating with the kind of artists that are on Red Feather Records. People who genuinely are interested in creating music that reflects what's going on with them, and they're going to have an ongoing conversation with their fans about it and be present with their fans and invite them into that process. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer for a very short question. I'm sorry about that.
All right.
I think we've got time for one more question. That's been a very quick hour.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, Susanna.
Oh, I'm just more interested in, there was a group that you have now where the fan base can come to and contact you and contact each other, is that right?
Are you talking about for the next album, for Love and Other Delusions?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Did you have a question specifically about that?
Is there an email address, or do you have a web page or anything like that?
Yes, so the album, I guess the next big project is Love and Other Delusions, and that is, this is a world first project. No one's done this before, where I'm going to write the album, co-write it with the fans. And again, it goes towards the idea that I have something that I want to explore, and it just so happens that every single person I talk to about this really wants to explore it as well. Like they're curious about where the conversation's going to go. And so I'm putting the call out there right now to say, does anybody want to create this album with me? And if anyone does want to be involved in Love and Other Delusions, you can sign up to the mailing list on my website, or you can email inquiries@leesafar.com. And the idea is that it's going to go over a year.
Okay.
And we're not just going to write, like the album's going to have 12 songs on it. And I thought, to start off with, I thought, well, I'll write 6 songs on my own and pick 6 individual producers for that. And then the other 6 songs I'll write with bands. But that's gone out the window. I'm doing all 12 songs with the fan base. And how we're going to start that, we're still waiting to see how many people want to get involved. And that will continue to grow as the project goes on. But there are a couple of elements to that process that have already started to show themselves as I guess, necessary elements to the project. People are already sending me stuff. People are sending me stories and photos and artwork and stuff saying, this is what my idea is, which is great, but the project hasn't started yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a lot of Google Hangouts like this, where we're going to have a whole like round table. These Google Hangouts can have 10 people in them. So I want to have discussions about certain elements around what the topic is. So, you know, Love and Other Delusions is about that gap between what we're brought up thinking that love is, and you know, these ideas that we get of love when we're little kids from fairy tales. And then we grow up into our own lives and we start meeting people that we're in love with, and we marry them and we do all this stuff, and then we realize maybe that wasn't love. Maybe that was just what I thought love was supposed to feel like. And then you feel really confused and broken and all this shit that goes on. That's what this album is about. It's exploring the gap between what you thought love was supposed to be and what it actually ends up being. And I call that gap the delusion. And I want to have conversations with people. I'm happy to have like up to 100 Google Hangouts before we actually really start getting any solid music down. Because I want to talk about it. I want to know what people think, and I want to know, you know, I want to know people's experiences and stories, and from those experiences and stories, we're going to write songs. We're going to write so many songs. I wrote over 200 songs for Laundry After Midnight.
And
So
then that came 10, 12 tracks. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And so for this, I want to just hear people's stories and talk to them about them and tell them my stories and be really giving and really open with expressing this subject matter, because I think there's a lot of healing that needs to happen out there for all of us. And no one's really having this conversation, not in a project like this that's then going to eventuate into an album. And then what we're going to do with that album is we're going to put it out there, and all the money we raise from album sales, we're going to translate that idea of love, and we're going to take that money and we're going to give it to the refugees in Syria.
Awesome.
And so we're paying that love forward. That's the idea from what, we'll get so much as a community out of connecting and being together and understanding each other, and we'll get so much healing. And I just think it's so great that we can take that healing and pay it forward to people who really are struggling and suffering and displaced. So that's the idea behind that one. Yeah. And I'm so excited. I can't tell you how excited I am about making this album. It's going to be a big project.
It's going to be an amazing project and an amazing album in the end as well.
I hope you guys are going to get involved in it.
I'm signing up to it. So
fantastic. Because I've heard your music, Simon. I love it. So I definitely hope that there will be a way that you want to get involved, if not as a producer, as a songwriter, as something like that.
Sure.
Excellent.
I've always got ideas. My mind is always full of music. So yeah.
It's kind of the disease of the creative, isn't it? We never really rest our brains. They're like going at a few miles an hour. All right, guys, I think we're actually over time, that felt like it was 10 minutes, I got to say.
I know, it does, doesn't it? When you've got a lot to say and talk about, always.
Thank you so much for hanging out. Sorry?
I said thank you very much. It's been great.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for spending the time hanging out with me, and it was just so great to get to talk to you and meet you like this, because we've spoken over Facebook a number of times, and yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
So have a great rest of your day, guys. And before I go, sorry, there is somebody who's doing the next missleelive, Spencer.
Okay.
Spencer, happy birthday. It's his birthday, and it's 4 a.m. in Canada, or 5 a.m. in Canada, I think. And he stayed up to watch.
Oh, brilliant.
So, because it's his birthday. So, Spencer, happy birthday. I can't wait to talk to you.
Happy birthday, Spencer.
And guys, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to continuing to get to know you in the future.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thank you, Lee. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too, guys. See you later.
Bye. Bye.